City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded November 7, 2024.
We'll bring our meeting to order. Candy, can we have roll, please?
Barrett.
Here.
Kirschling.
Here.
Rozek. Here. Ostrowski.
Here.
Zenner.
Here. All right, number 2, President's Report. I don't have anything to say today outside of what is already on our agenda. Number 3, discussion to move next month's meeting to either Thursday, December 5th or Tuesday, December 10th. I'll just put my 2 cents in first. I would prefer December 5th, but does anybody have any other thoughts or preferences?
5th works for me.
Me too.
That's
Good.
fine.
All right, we'll move next month's meeting to December 5th. Number 4, approval of minutes.
Is that 1 p.m.?
What's that?
1 p.m. again?
Yeah. We'll keep them all at 1 o'clock, pending that works for everybody.
I'll make a motion to approval of minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 5, confirmation of bills. Mr. Secretary.
All right, Mr. President, first one in your packet is the ambulance one. Nothing unusual, nothing jumps out on there. And when you look at the second page, they're well within budget yet. Fire department, very similar, nothing unusual there. Nothing stands out that needs really an explanation. They, while they're not running within budget, there's reasons why we've explained before. And finally, the police department budget, nothing highly unusual other than you notice about midway armor plates. Those are for the vests improvement and very needed expense. And they are, when you compare against their yearly budget, they're running fine. So with that, I would move for approval as submitted.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second by Rozek.
All right. Instead of asking if we have any questions, I do have a question on the police side for Mallory Gaylord for $5,000. Well, can you tell us a little bit what that was all about?
Yeah, what we do now is we actually sponsor an individual that attends the academy, and if that is the $5,000 for the academy,
Yep.
we will actually get reimbursed by the state now that she's completed it successfully. So they'll reimburse us that $5,000 for the cost of the academy.
Okay, good. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 6, police chief's report. Chief?
Yes, personnel, we are at 46 out of 49 right now. 3 of those 46 are currently still in the academy. They're expected to graduate on December 18th, getting us at 46 boots on the ground, and then each of them will go through an FTO process for approximately 3 to 4 months. So in April, we should be at 46 officers that are all in their own squads and working solo patrol. Going through some of the notes of interest, on October 5th, Lieutenant Johnson participated in a winterization event at the Lincoln Center, the ADRC here in Stevens Point. He worked with another organization where they bring in individuals, and the individuals get a multi-point inspection on their vehicles. They basically get it winterized for the winter. That event did go on for 4 hours, and it was completely booked. Every 10 minutes they had another customer that came through to help them, and they even got 5 or 6 people through that didn't have appointments as well. Talking about Mallory Gaylord, on the 14th of October, she was sworn in here as the 287th officer with the Stevens Point Police Department. She is currently in step 1 of the FTO process. With Sergeant Lee resigning his position and going to another department, in late October, we had an outside panel for interviews, and we went through the entire promotional process. And I don't know if you saw that, but yesterday Acting Sergeant Alex Beach was promoted to probationary sergeant for Squad B here at the Stevens Point Police Department. On the 25th, we all said goodbye to an individual who went to California, Pastor Ficken. He has been part of our chaplains program for the past 17 years. Chaplain program, which is something that all first responders here use, the fire department, us, the county, Plover, is when there's troubled times, and it can be law enforcement related, it can be fire department related, it can be individuals that lost somebody in an accident, but the chaplains actually come here or come to the scene and help those individuals grieving through their process. And he has been doing that for the police department, I know the fire department, and the county for the last 17 years. And he has made a decision to move to California. So he is definitely going to be missed here in the city. And on the 26th, Officer Radsick participated with the county for the drug take-back event, again at the ADRC or the Lincoln Center. And I had one more thing. We've got Officer Beatish. He has actually gone into step 3 of the field training program. In the FTO process, it did state step 2, but he has been advanced to step 3 at this time as well. And Lead Officer Dinger and Canine Coy attended this last month his canine recertification in Von Lake Kennels, and he is currently certified and up to par. And that is it for us. Oh, the other thing I'd like to say is we had a very large event that came to the city here on Monday, and I know this was November, but I do need to put out a thank you to the fire department, to Portage County Sheriff's Department, UW Stevens Point, Plover Police Department, Secret Service, and the Homeland Security investigators. Vice President candidate Walls came to town with very, very short notice. I was on vacation, so Assistant Chief Williams and Assistant Chief Rotier kind of handled the beginning of it. I came back, and on Sunday we did a walkthrough. We did not know the location of where this was going to be taking place until 2 days ahead of time, and the entire department and all the agencies that I talked about came together and put together a very, very successful event with no issues whatsoever. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we do RTF, Rescue Task Force training, on a yearly basis that Lieutenant Johnson organizes. We've been doing that for 10 or 11 years, and it brings all the agencies together. And so we knew that we had to come together. We had to have a security office where all the communication would take place. We knew we had an incident command that was going to be in place. And so everything worked very smoothly. So I just want to thank everybody publicly for their help with that, because that was a very, very large undertaking in a 5-day notice and a 2-day notice of where it was going to take place and what time it was going to take place.
Very good. Motion?
Make a motion to approve Chief Crusoe's police report, our chief's report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments?
Chief, one question for you. I see the dogs went back for annual passing of the stuff. Do we still have an officer and a canine that can do that here?
Correct.
I thought we
do.
sent somebody for that.
So we have Sergeant Ballou is actually a certified trainer, and he can certify dogs. We do not allow him to certify our other canine at this point because we don't want any questions to come up in court. And so we get it free for him. He goes down to the Canine Olympics and gets certified that way. And then we send Coy and Dinger down there to get certified by an independent agency, so that that's never a question in court.
The other question I had in regards to the dogs, are some of them trained for drugs and some of them trained for tracking? I mean, is there a difference?
No, we have all dual-purpose dogs. It was actually kind of interesting when we started looking at canines. So we did dual-purpose, so they do all of it. They'll do tracking, they'll do property, and they'll do narcotics. Well, they also do bite work. And when we first started looking at dogs, there are single-purpose dogs that you can choose for just narcotics. But what we were told by the insurance company is that you definitely want a dog that's a dual-purpose dog, because all dogs in a time of crisis will bite. And if a dog is trained to bite and trained to release, that dog will release on command. So if you have a single-purpose dog and it bites, you may not be able to release that dog from that individual. And so we actually went with all dual-purpose dogs. And then obviously we've got Canine Willow, which is nothing to do with dual purpose. It's a therapy dog.
I find that interesting because just recently, within the last 2 weeks, I was watching a news report of a city here in Wisconsin, and they had to call off one dog because it wasn't the right type, and they had to bring it in. I was just kind of curious how ours were.
Yep.
I'm glad ours are multi-purpose.
Yep.
All right, any other comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 7, acknowledgment and congratulations to Fire Chief J.B. Moody and Deputy Fire Marshal Justin Malin as being selected as Fire Chief of the Year and Fire Inspector of the Year by the Wisconsin State Fire Inspectors Association.
Yes, so for those of you who out there don't know, that I am the fire department liaison, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware of why Chief Moody and Deputy Fire Marshal Malin were given this award. First of all, our Chief Moody has been with us in this position as chief for 2 years and 8 months. So receiving this prestigious award in that short length of time speaks volumes in itself. So I'm going to read the following. This past October, Chief J.B. Moody was presented with the Fire Chief of the Year Award by the Wisconsin State Fire Inspectors Association. Chief Moody was instrumental in the creation and hiring of both the Division Chief and Deputy Fire Marshal / Emergency Management Coordinator positions for the Stevens Point Fire Department. These positions allow the department's bureau to take complete responsibility for 100% of the fire inspections within the city, ensuring a more streamlined and standardized process. This continues to foster a more technical and consistent approach with area shareholders regarding fire prevention. Additionally, as a fierce proponent of fire prevention and life safety for the residents of the city of Stevens Point and the village of Park Ridge, he was commended for spearheading a contract between the two entities, which brought with it a new position and over 40 more inspectable occupancies under the Bureau. As chief of the Stevens Point Fire Department, Moody imparts the department's mission to train and educate all involved entities, knowing that through both, risk reduction will follow. He works with business owners to move in the right direction, but as the authority having jurisdiction, he always enforces the code, saying, if it's in the code, we enforce it. Risk reduction is always in the forefront of Moody's mind for the community that he serves. With his innovative nature and focus on the community he serves, Chief Moody continues to bring change to the Stevens Point Fire Department, further ensuring the needs of an ever-growing and ever-changing community are addressed. So congratulations, Chief, on that.
Thank you.
Moving on to our Deputy Fire Marshal Malin. This past October, Deputy Fire Marshal Justin Malin was presented with the Inspector of the Year Award by the Wisconsin State Fire Inspectors Association. A significant point is, too, in this short amount of time, since he was hired in August of 2023, Deputy Fire Marshal Justin Malin has completed over 1,000 fire inspections for the city of Stevens Point. Malin consistently strives for excellence within his profession, as evidenced by the over 400 fire code violations identified while working with business and property owners to facilitate corrections in both the city of Stevens Point and the village of Park Ridge. Malin is an advocate of fire prevention and life safety and is continually finding ways to share his message. Recently, he was the lead point of contact for the 2024 Stevens Point Fire Department Open House, which was attended by over 300 of our community members and was the first open house since the Stevens Point Fire Department had conducted in over 20 years. Malin's attention to detail is evidenced by the scheduling of both the 2023 and 2024 Fire Prevention Week school briefings and fire safety demos, where over 750 students throughout the community are taught about fire safety annually. Deputy Fire Marshal Malin is a dedicated promoter of fire prevention and life safety for our community and a vital member of the Stevens Point Fire Department. So again, congratulations to that.
Does anybody else? Because I have a few things to say, if anybody...
I would just like to say I couldn't be prouder of both of these gentlemen. I haven't gotten to know them both. I really thank you for your service, but thank you for my particular case. You've made this job a lot easier.
Well, I will start with Deputy Fire Marshal Malin. He, for those of you, for a little history, he is the third member of the department's history to receive the Fire Inspector Award of the Year. That's pretty significant when you look at the history of the department as a whole. Deputy Fire Marshal Malin, he is consistently improving the department. He is reducing the risk in the community, and his EM skills have really blossomed. Congratulations. It's an honor to have you as part of our department. Chief Moody, the significance of winning the Fire Chief of the Year is off the charts. It has never happened in our department's history. Like Commissioner Morozek had said, that
2 years and 8 months?
Yeah, I was thinking in less than 3 years, Chief Moody has accomplished this. There are, correct me if I'm wrong, over 400 departments in the state.
There are 761 fire departments in the state of Wisconsin.
Even more significant, over 700 departments in the state, and our very own chief is the Fire Chief of the Year. It's extremely significant. You're obviously respected by your colleagues, your peers, and staff. The citizens of Stevens Point and Portage County are very fortunate to have you leading the fire department in Stevens Point. I personally have seen you work tirelessly, giving everything you have to make your department the best it can be. And I thank you for your dedication, your hard work, and your leadership. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, we will move on. Number 8, discussion with possible action to approve 9 new firefighter paramedic positions to the department for a total of 57 approved positions and 55 funded positions for the Stevens Point Fire Department effective January 1st, 2025.
Since this was a successful referendum that was passed this Tuesday, again, as the department's liaison, I would like to make a motion, and then we can open it up for discussion.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the 9 new firefighter paramedic positions to the department for a total of 57 approved positions and 55 funded positions for the Stevens Point Fire Department effective January 1st of 2025.
I will second that. We have a motion and a second. Comments, questions, concerns?
I got some questions. First, congratulations, Chief. I don't think it's unknown. I'm not in agreement with how this process went. I believe we should have had a discussion before an ordinance as to what that number would be. But certainly the voters within the city have spoken, and again, congratulations on that. I do have some concerns, and the one I will address initially. You're asking for the approval of 57 positions and 55 funded?
Correct.
I recall asking you that very question when you came forward with 9 requests initially. I think we had a meeting February 6th, and I asked you before that meeting, where would these 9 go? I wasn't even in agreement at that point to identify 9, so we called it up to 9. Would that be identified above and beyond where you were approved or what you were currently already funded for. And you had told me at that point that 9 would be added to your funded. Essentially, you would absorb those approved positions and you would become whole at ultimately 55, I guess, if I'm adding into that. But that was a discussion I had with you in your office and also at the February 6th meeting, of which you confirmed to me that those positions would not be added to your authorized level. So what has changed from that point? That was my understanding of February 6th.
So we were looking at the 46 funded and the 48 approved positions prior to this. And with that, the request to go to referendum was for the additional 9 positions to be funded for the department with the referendum. Then with that, if you take the 46, that would take us to 55 funded positions. We, through the process, like Chief Cuso and the rest of the department heads have discussed, actually back to 2018 when you were the chief, there was a plan in place to fill positions throughout the city in different departments as needed. We then, with that, we were creative in funding additional positions through contracted funds and have continued to increase that funding that way. And with that now being able to be, to have the funding for the additional 9 to put us at 55 and having the additional positions available to get creative with funding into the future with additional contracts, that would be where we're looking to go with this.
I don't agree with adding the 2, which is why it was the question I asked back in February 6th. I think getting 9 firefighters through this referendum fulfilled what you had already set out, what was identified as your approved, and then you added 7 more on top of that. Now to carry, ultimately, if you're authorized,
I guess I just didn't follow that last section.
You're currently approved 48 personnel.
Yes.
You are now, with this 9-person referendum, looking to increase that to 57 approved.
Yes.
The question I asked you back in February in your office, and again during a Police and Fire Commission meeting, was, were those 9 personnel, or up to 9 personnel, going to be added to that approved number? Because I had concerns with that, and you said no, they would be added to the funded. Hence, your approved level would be fulfilled, and you'd be approved and funded for 55 firefighters, not 57. Right now, how I'm understanding this is basically we have 2 more positions that are floating out there for you wanting to fill in the future. Not to say that could not be done. That is above and beyond what we discussed already for this ordinance. I think if that's something you wish to add those 2 in the future, that's a conversation for another day. I believe at this point, the 9 are up to 9. I mean, there's obviously questions I wish would be answered before we move to include those 9, but again, ordinance has gone by. But I would not be in support of increasing that approved number to 57, how it's listed right now. That goes beyond what this was meant to be, based on your own words of a meeting of February 6th before the ordinance went through.
And you were the liaison at that time with Chief?
Yes.
Okay. So I wasn't, of course, privy to any of that conversation that took place. I guess I look at this as a little, and again, definitely we should be having, open conversation about this. I look at this a little bit differently in regards to having the 2 remain out there. It's potentially keeping that door open for additional contracts, kind of like what happened in Park Ridge, how we funded, the Deputy Fire Marshal's position, correct?
Yes.
And to me, I'm just looking at it like, should we really be closing that door? Is it doing harm keeping that door open with the?
Well, I guess that's my concern. We're adding these positions,
The additional two out there?
We're taking on Park Ridge, and we said we could absorb it at that point, which obviously at this point, based on what we're looking at for numbers, we can't. We have a contract with the county, and many of these numbers that we added looking at why we need 9 additional firefighters is based on EMS. We have a contract with the county, and just so people know, they may not know, the county pays us contractually for EMS services. This is certainly a benefit countywide to have these 9 people come in, but not $1 is coming out of the taxpayers in the county. The city of Stevens Point, the taxpayers within the city of Stevens Point are picking up these 9 firefighters. That concerns me too. Then again, we could look down that path. One question I had listed was, what happens when we come up for another contractual discussion with the county, which I believe is, what, 5 years from now?
We're in the second year of a 4-year contract.
Okay. I would hope that this conversation comes up for what the next 2-3 years we're going to be paying for this. Is that money that we're going to look at through the county when we go back to, identifying that contract? And what if the county balks on us? What if they decide they want to take their business elsewhere? Is that a possibility? We've had that conversation. Is this something the city can absorb? The cost of not only what our fire department is right now, but adding 9 firefighters to it. And we're not even talking about the, the current infrastructure that's in place. Can we handle 9? Again, that's a conversation that we had in the past, and moving forward. At this point, I don't think we should be making a decision to keep a door open for how we can expand. What have we had a discussion on at this point? What was that discussion based on our conversation that we had? What that number is 55 approved and funded positions within the fire department. I am not in agreement with increasing that approved level at this point without further discussion. It's completely different than what the ordinance was based on at that point.
And so these additional positions, they, on a minimum staffing level or on a day-to-day basis, to go back to that, they are not fulfilling EMS positions. We're not adding an additional ambulance fully staffed on a day-to-day basis. These positions were hired to staff fire apparatuses within the city. Now, are they cross-staffed? Absolutely. Can they do both roles? Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like Chief Cuso's dogs as well. We want to make sure that they're able to do multifaceted things when it comes to the benefit to the department and the abilities and cost effectiveness. But these people were hired to increase staffing levels on the fire apparatuses. Yes, we do have a contract with the county for EMS as well. We have contracts with multiple agencies. We also have auto aid agreements and MAVIS agreements. I guess when it comes to the actual ordinance, the ordinance or the referendum, like I stood in front of everybody or at the open forums had discussed, this was for the potential to fund 9 additional positions within the Stevens Point Fire Department, and that's what we're truly here asking for, is to fund those positions. When it comes to looking at the infrastructure of the department and how we're going to be able to handle those individuals, we have looked at that, and we have worked together as a command staff and with the local or the union to look at how that's going to work and develop as well, and we're able to meet the needs of those positions within those departments or within the 2 stations as well. I maybe should have been making a list as you were going along.
Right. Well, again, I'm sure in many of the concerns or questions, I guess is a better way of putting it, that I have, that we have not had that conversation. We had basically a 10-minute canned video from federal standards and some calls for service that you brought up that we discussed. at that meeting. We did discuss, if we're looking at calls for service compared to 1981, I believe it was, are we addressing calls for service the same? Are we, calculating those the same as we were then? We have different calls for service, essential, non-essential calls for service. Certainly, we respond to different calls now at the fire department than we did in 1981. The expectation is different. But are those calls essential? We had no conversations on that. And again, what does that look like if the county wishes to go a different direction? And I know what you're saying. This is looking at the fire department, but there is obviously more staff provide a better ambulance service also. Is that something we're looking for? And I'm sure having that conversation, we will come back to what you have identified as 9. We wanted to add a tier to each shift. There's 3 shifts. There's 3 to a tier. That's 9. I'm sure we would get to that. I would hope we would have went into more of that information before we, just hit the rubber stamp and say there's 9, but that is where we're at. Goes back to the other point, though. If you're looking to add a tier to each shift, that's 3 in a tier. At least that's how you identified it in the past. That's 3 shifts. 3 times 3 is 9. You got your 9. Why are we adding 2 more to an approved, still above and beyond what is funded? We haven't identified that. We haven't had that conversation yet, which is why I don't agree with adding those 9 positions to the approved level. We added it to the funded. It absorbs what we already had approved. My opinion is it's 55 approved, 55 funded. If you want to get those 2 back or add more above and beyond that point, that's a discussion for another day.
To be clear, the 2 additional approved has nothing to do with the referendum.
Correct.
I want to make that very clear. One question is from the additional that you had approved from 46 to 48. What was the history of that? If you can remind us, what was the intent? What was the history of it? Why would there be 46 funded and 48 approved?
Again, that's the plan that all of the departments got together and put forward 6 years ago.
Okay.
And as we moved forward with that, departments along the way were able to pick up positions. So as the city was able to fund an additional position operationally, there was a decision to either put it into a certain department. And that decision then would be made by the department heads and a plan in place along with the mayor and the comptroller's office. Like they are continuing to move forward with as of today. There's a plan in place now. Chief Kuso and I do know, and we've both asked questions in those department head meetings of what is the strategic plan, or what, with the plan in place, who gets that next position or who gets that following position, and that has not been identified yet, and we don't know what that is. We just know that when the city comes to us and says there is additional funding, there is a potential for a position in your department, that's when you're notified that you get that position.
So you're staying consistent with other departments in the city?
Correct. Just like Chief Kuso has right now, so many positions funded and then so many positions approved. It's the same with the fire department and along with the other departments in the city. It's just they all have not been funded. So when funding occurs, then those positions would be funded and then hired.
Or if there's funding from other places like Mid-State, you would work with other organizations in the past. If the funding doesn't come from the city, it may come from somewhere else.
Correct.
That would be an accurate statement.
Yes, it can come from somewhere else. Like the last example would be the Village of Park Ridge.
Sure.
And we added an additional position.
Sure.
Again, we didn't need to go through the process because we had the position already approved within the organization. The funding became available through the contract, and so then we hired that position. And then with the realm of what position would be most feasible is what we selected to do with that within the organization and the department.
See, and that's where I'm coming from. Is I hear what you're saying, Tom. I'm just looking at it to keep the door open, and I've also heard, and I've heard from others too about the call volume and how it's compared to something back in 1981, 43 years ago. I think if we all go back in time, 43 years ago, those of us who are, over 43 years old, life is different, and the data does speak, and that's what kind of the world we live in today. I would love to know, back 43 years ago, what the calls for both departments. I think I can safely say that given the growth, and I even look at with our apartment structures, everything that's coming into Stevens Point, our population is just continuing to expand, and as far as for both departments that we support too, the calls are clearly going to be way higher than they were 43 years ago.
And again, that's an argument we have then. Again, I go back to it. You identified previously, and you said back in 2018, what you needed at your department. You got that +7 through this referendum. I do not see, nor do I think it goes with our own discussion we had back in February. You had told me that was going towards funded. It was not going towards your approved level. I'm basically holding you to what you told me in February. And I think that's fair. If you wish to increase that authorized level to 57 in the future, you certainly can come before the board and make that argument, which I would recommend you do that before you go to an ordinance and have that conversation here to identify what that number is beforehand. And we can certainly open that door. It's not that hard to do an authorized level as long as you can show the numbers and data to support it at that time. We don't need to include it here. I think we ought to keep it clean based on our conversations that we had. It was going to be added to the funded. Your approved level is whole at 55 and your funded level is 55. That's how I see that play out.
Tom, a question for you. What would be the difference if it's 60 approved, 70 approved? If it's funded, it's funded. What does the approval have to do with?
The approval goes through, you will have to talk to the Police and Fire Commission to get that approval. It would have to go to personnel, and then if it is approved and you want to get those positions funded, then it goes to finance. Nothing says you can't go to the approval level. I just don't think we've hit that threshold, nor have we had that discussion. And there's, like I said, there's a reason why I asked that question back in February.
I have a hard time going backwards if we're not staying consistent with what the other departments are doing. And we're already there was 46 funded, 48 approved, and now we're going backwards. I hear what you're saying, Tom. I'm hearing it. I think staying consistent with other departments and adding 9 to both numbers, to me, makes sense. I think if the chiefs, and I'm going to use both chiefs, if they can get it funded and they need it, then, and they can justify it, then it seems to make sense.
It makes no sense that we're making a decision to get 9 positions, which already fulfills the 2 that they're requesting, and add 7 more. I mean, you got what you wanted. You got the 2 positions that were hanging out there, and you're getting 7 more on top of that. Why are we creating, if you wanted those extra 2 positions, why did we not move forward in a referendum requested at that time? Why did we not ask for 11?
Because you don't need them right now.
Well, actually, the studies.
That's the point I'm trying to make. We don't need them at this point. Why don't we make a decision when we need them and look for an approval? At this point, we needed 9 firefighters, which you identified, which, again, you told me twice in your office and in a meeting, that was going to satisfy your needs. Well, then let's address that.
I can see both sides of the argument. I mean, I like a clean break. I like to see, like, we got 9 approved by the city of Stevens Point. I would hate for people to say, well, we approved 9, why is there 11, et cetera. Secondly, I could see for future, if our city is going to expand like everyone's talking about it, what if in the future you need 4 more people? You know, wouldn't it be better to approve these 9 and then wait and see? I don't, you know, what do you think about that, right?
How long does the process take for you to come back, put together a presentation, present to the Police and Fire Commission, present to the personnel, and eventually go to finance if you needed those 2 positions?
To go through the process with 2 months.
It's really not that.
2 months, 3 months at most. And again, it'll be the same presentation that I presented back in February, because again, the studies showed that it was actually 15 people that were needed for the department. We discussed with several other organizations along with this PFC the financial impact of the 15 at $107,515 per person. So we realized the 1.6 million was not a feasible ask. And that's why we settled, or we agreed to the 9 for the safety purposes of the department and being able to run our fire apparatuses. It has nothing to do with the EMS call. It's to be able to respond to those fire calls and be appropriately staffed. And again, if the body here, or the Police and Fire Commission, runs under Robert's Rules of Orders, I understand there's a motion and a second on the floor. I understand we're under discussion. We can pass through this and we can create a new motion if the PFC feels that that's appropriate as well, to look at the staffing level differently. And again, if I can come up with something financially to fill a position, but then we're cherry picking also 1 position at a time, where if I come back with a presentation, the presentation is going to show, or the studies that we're having done on our department are going to show several positions, and we're going for the 1 then at that point.
I guess I made the motion, and I want the motion to stand on the fact that I hear your side of it, Tom. To me, I don't look at the harm in this. So I'm going to, I guess, with the motions out there, and we go to vote, and then go from there.
And another comment that I have is, why should the fire department be treated differently than other departments? Because the other ones have approved positions, and then there's funded positions. I guess I'm looking at consistency as well. Why should the fire department be treated different than any other department? And because the referendum is totally separate.
Personnel by referendum.
But that's something that's totally different. That's totally something different, because you have the 9, and then prior to this, you still had 46, 48. So to me, they're 2 different things. And the referendum already passed, which we've all agreed on that. Right. That's that. And having the fire department be treated differently than other departments.
I don't see that. It's certainly not my point that you're being treated different. I don't see it that way. You identify what personnel you need. It was listed already too. You requested 9 in an ordinance. That too was established, plus 7. I don't understand where the unfair aspect is. So that's certainly not my point.
Well, other departments.
I go back to my basic question why I asked you this in February, and you told me it was not getting added to the approved. It was going to the funded. So I'll stand on that.
Okay. Go ahead.
A couple of things I'm trying to understand here, because I've seen these on reports for as long as I've been on the board. Approved, funded. You know, I never fully understood why this was sitting there like that. I know, having run a corporation store, I was told how many people I could have, and believe me, I didn't go under it. I tried to stay at it. Chief, your department, you are at strength at 46 right now. What is your approved level?
The ordinance states we can have up to 49.
Okay. Street department, I assume, is the same. I assume whatever other departments are all the same. So apparently there's a consensus out there that you have what you can afford, the funded amount, but here's what we would like level. This is what we could use, you know. So the system is probably causing some of this problem, because to the average person, you would say, I can hire 3 people, you hire 3 people. This is saying I could hire 3 people, but if someday I want to add a 4th, I want to have that door open. That's where I think the confusion is. I understand both points of view. I just find that I agree with Denise. If the parameters are set that you have on another level, why change it in the ballgame? Because the other departments aren't going to suddenly drop theirs. I can guarantee you that. But Tom, I totally agree with you and the fact that the realistic part is we can pay the lower amount. Why do we need this other target sitting out there? I think it's sitting out there because that's the way powers on high decided to do it in the past. They set up this ball game. It's kind of like if you ever listen to a football game. You can have 53 players, but then there's 10 guys on taxi squad. Okay, this is the same thing. This is the taxi squad. You know, without having to go to the league and say, can I put a different football player in? They can drop one and pick up another. Same thing here. I just see it as the way the rules were set down. So
I will state that the 49 that we've got for the Stevens Point Police Department, and I believe for the fire department, they're based on a staff study that was completed in 2017. And at the time, 49 for us would cover our manpower issues, and that's where the 49 came from. So that's where their 46 would have came from as well.
I think I remember that review back when they went through all the departments, didn't they?
Chief, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to say one last thing is when we started this referendum process, and I've said it in every open forum that we've had during the day, at night, every place I've went, is the transparency and the tax increase to the citizens of the city of Stevens Point. And we wanted to make sure that was clear in this process, that the taxes were going up in the city of Stevens Point 4.5% no matter what. That wasn't controlled by this referendum or anything. The referendum change was the 4.864%. That's where the change was going to come if the referendum were to pass. That meant that when all the numbers were in August, after submitting everything to the state, making sure that the referendum language was correct, the total increase is going to be 9.7%, and that's what was in the referendum question. So I made a very bold statement in stating that transparency was how we were going to do this, and making sure that everything would stay that way. I made sure that every time I explained it, we were hiring tiers of firefighters. We walked through the process. Anytime anybody had any questions, we answered those. So going back to Commissioner Zenner's question, if I stated in and I truly believe this, if I stated in a February PFC meeting or a January PFC or March or whenever, if I stated that at the PFC meeting, that this was the way it was going to go, then I would say then for transparency as well, then that's the way it needs to go. Because I don't want to be the chief that says one thing and does something different, especially through this process. If that's...
And again, I wasn't part of that conversation, but I am going to come to your defense on this. As far as throughout this process, I have had nothing but transparency, you know, in dealing with you. If you look at any of your presentations that you've given, it hasn't changed, you know, to the public, to us. even as when you walk in that fire department, and I've gotten to know on both staff, fire and the police department, not just management, the line staff, it is overwhelmingly stated that you are a chief of authenticity, truth, transparency, and it's been said time and time again to me. So I don't even like the fact that there's even a question of that. So I want to make sure that everything that I've seen presented publicly and conversations, I have never, ever gotten that feel from you, or from others for that matter.
Yeah, there's been a motion, there's been a second. I think what we need to do, because there's going to be different, I just don't want to do a verbal on this. I think we need to go each individual commissioner, because it may be a little confusing on the vote. So if you can, Candy, just go down the...
What's the motion again?
Exactly, I read it in exactly as it's written, Tom.
Okay.
Barron?
I'm in favor. I don't see a problem with the 2 reserves, right? That's what we're moving on, the fact that
Right.
9 were approved and we're having the 2 reserves, right? Okay.
Kirschling?
All right.
Rozick?
Aye.
Ostrowski?
Aye.
Zenner?
No.
All right, we have 4 ayes and 1 no. Motion carries. Number 9, update the Stevens Point Fire Department Training Center at the training site located at 3100 Whiting Avenue. Chief?
So an update on the training center at our training site. That was initially in the request for capital funding for 2025 and was approved by the commission to move forward on. The training center itself was pulled from that capital project and moved through finance and through common council to a 2026 capital funded project, and was approved this past month. And they approved for the initial $960,000 or 33.3% of the building moving forward at the training site to break ground on a shovel-ready project for 2026. How we plan on funding the additional parts of that building is basically how Mid-State Technical College went through and fundraised for their Ameta Center. And we will be looking to do the same with this facility as well. We've already met with 2 or 3 of the big partners or possible partners in this build for 2026, and we're just working with some of the departments, other departments besides the fire department in the city to see what their needs are as well with the facility and what we can do to help support other trainings or other avenues in the site location for moving forward with that. So we've been working with everybody, and I just wanted to give the commission an update on that.
Chief, wasn't the original plan like a 10-year plan on that site? Because I remember there was something going to be done each year for almost 10 years.
So the 10-year plan is with Mid-State Technical College. That is a partnership with Mid-State Technical College. When they got into the partnership with us, we signed a 10-year agreement. They put up $25,000 annually for a total of $250,000, and $5,000 each year goes to the maintenance of the site and how we see fit. So that's where their partnership has come in. We also have a partnership with the Department of Criminal Investigation, DCI, and then we are looking to partner with some other organizations as well to move the site forward.
Okay, that's my main question, and that leads to, by delaying this a year, isn't this going to affect all these partnerships?
No, not at all. These partners that we have are already in with us on this partnership, and this was actually a discussion that we had through the capital process, and it made more sense if we were going to be fundraising for the building to give the fire department and some of its partners the opportunity to do that fundraising through 2025 and part of 26 until we hit the ground running on that center.
So our partners would be open to this, if I call it a extended program.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Number 10, Fire Chief's report, EMS report, EM report. Chief?
So October was Public Education Month. As you can see, there were several public activities that the department was involved with throughout the month. Again, thanks to the men and women of the Stevens Point Fire Department and the Bureau for putting that foot forward and being that involved in our community. There was an open house this past month and a safety event. It went very well. It was well attended and is the first one that we've had in over 20 years at our department. As you can see, there is a Explorer Post recruitment meeting being held November 11th. I believe that's next Monday at Stevens Point Fire Department Fire Headquarters. Like Chief Kuso had talked about, Chaplain Ficken has followed his faith and moved on, and has been a real asset to the PD and the fire department over the past 16, 17 years of his service, and will be greatly missed by not only our department, but more importantly, our peer support members and our SISM program managers. Monthly trainings continue. As you can see, a lot's been happening within the organization. Through Continuum, you will see that the numbers continue to be up as far as the call volume, and at this point, even with last month's totals at the end of October, we've already surpassed 2023's call volume for the year. And it's getting to be that time of the year again with hunting coming up. So we've been out doing some technical rescue and EMS rescue training when it comes to tree stand rescues and awareness. Citizens Academy has been going well within the Stevens Point Fire Department. We partner with many different organizations when it comes to law enforcement agencies, fire and EMS agencies throughout the county to assist in making sure our citizens are aware of what we're doing throughout the community and county. Graduation is actually tonight at the LEC, so that will be well attended. One other thing I'd like to point out is that we have seen an increase, a considerable increase in the written thank yous and recognition for service for the men and women, the Stevens Point Fire Department, and the services and the calls that they're providing. On average, we'll see 2 or 3, maybe 4 of those thank you letters, or really shining a light on somebody within our organization. We always make sure that they're aware of that. As chief officers, we talk to them about that call, try to figure out what was that above and beyond part that really took it to that next level. And so with that, they always explain what's going on and where they felt it needed to go. But this past month or two, it's been overwhelming. We've seen just one after another. So I really would like to just say thank you to the men and women of the Stevens Point Fire Department for all they're doing when it comes to going out on those calls on a day-to-day basis. The EM report, and I'm going to let Deputy Fire Marshal Malin speak on some of these things as he's got a presentation on this next-gen information within his report. but he continues to go to school and fine tune and hone in on his skills when it comes to going to like recovery from disasters within the community. He's met with Carrie Yenter and the city clerk's office and really stepped up when it came to the elections this past month and knowing where and how things were going to run. Continues to work on that partnership with the university and the county. And so I'd like to bring him up and give him the opportunity to speak on some of these things because there's some big things happening in the city when we talk about next-gen software for warning sirens and being storm recognized as a city is something new that I'd like him to point out what that's all actually about.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, so first I'll start with meeting with Carrie and the clerk's office about voting. Obviously, voting took place yesterday, or excuse me, on Tuesday. With that, work with UWSP to do a election tabletop exercise. We have 11 polling sites for elections for voting in the city, and UWSP was one of them. So worked with them. We did a tabletop in September, then identified a few concerns, one being Narcan for the clerk's office. So working with Chief Kuso on that, we were able to get Narcan to the clerk's office, and then additional kits to all of the polling locations for the poll workers. Also attended the Chief Inspector training for their department on October 30th, and one of our med units came as well and did a quick presentation on how to administer Narcan. And then with voting taking place period, I did a event action plan as well, listed all the sites or aerial overview of the map and some contact info, because with the tabletop exercise we learned that not everybody had contact info for everything, so kind of streamline that a little bit, and we'll continue to build off of that every year. So, and no issues were reported on Tuesday, so that was good. Next one I want to talk about is Storm Ready. On October 22nd, we were officially recognized as being Storm Ready for the city of Stevens Point with the National Weather Service. Storm Ready is a program developed by the National Weather Service to help communities and organizations prepare and manage hazardous weather conditions. The main goal is to enhance safety, minimize the impact of severe weather by promoting advanced planning, education, and proactive measures. I learned of the program several months ago, and we were doing almost all of the criteria there, so to officially be recognized with the National Weather Service is pretty big. And the National Weather Service will be coming here and presenting us a sign that we've earned when it comes in, which will be pretty cool. And there's a renewal process, I believe, every 3 years that we'll go through, and we'll continue to keep up with that program. So. The last thing I want to talk about is something called Next Gen with our warning sirens. So I learned we have 8 warning siren locations within the city, and I learned that we really didn't have a good way other than just doing our yearly maintenance to make sure that they work. So working with both assistant chiefs on the fire and police side, the last 6-7 months, we've just been sending a fire representative and a police officer out to verify that they work and that they just verify that it makes sound. We did have an issue at PJ where it stopped working in July. I was notified, we got that fixed right away, which is pretty cool. But in working with that process with Sheboygan Warning Systems, who does our maintenance, they brought forward software called Next Gen, and Scott Badoon, who's our Public Works Director, myself, and Sheboygan Warning System, we went through kind of this overview of the program and really liked it. Next Gen is a next generation system or platform that is used to manage and monitorize emergency warning systems. So with that, we really liked what that had to offer and some of the perks there. So I actually received a signed purchase order from Scott Badoon in his department for $33,494.50 to move forward with getting that software for our warning sirens. And I think I just wanted to highlight that it's a awesome partnership between EM and some of the other city departments. It'll be a huge benefit to us. And one of the biggest things is we'll have, real-time data that we can see battery life on our sirens. We can see if they're sounding. We can see if they're rotating. We can, set them off remotely, if need be, kind of thing. So which is pretty neat. It allows us to kind of keep up with some of the technology trends and whatnot. So. But like I said, I just wanted to highlight that as being a big accomplishment, for EM and Public Works and being able to highlight that partnership. So, any questions?
Just one comment. You recently met with some of us commissioners, and I want to thank you for that because it was very enlightening. And this next gen, I know we talked about it. I think there was just shortly thereafter that one of those wasn't working, and that worked out. It's, something we all take for granted. It's like the fire extinguisher in your house. We all have one. Then you look at the last time you checked, it was 18 years ago. It's the same thing with this. So I'm glad the city's on top of it, and your department is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for the time.
Thank you. All right. Anything else?
That is it for the fire, EMS, and EM reports.
All right. We have a motion.
Joe, one last question.
I have a comment too that I want to make.
Go ahead. Chief, just one last question. On the multiple ambulance runs, if I noticed 2 and 3 ambulances at one time, if they're in a 3, they're not also in that 2, in other words. Because when you have 3 out, you really got 2 out also. They're only entered in once, correct?
Each ambulance that goes out is only entered in once. So if you have multiple ambulances out at once, that's multiple actual units on different scenes.
Because that's, last month you guys were really busy with multiple.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just noticed that.
And the comment I want to make too is there's been a lot of heavy discussion happening today, but I don't want it to take away, and I want to congratulate you, Chief, on running a successful referendum that went to the citizens of the city of Stevens Point, and they said yes. This has been a very long process, and I know that, throughout this, I've been your liaison since May. You've kept me pretty abreast on what's been going on, and that you didn't get there alone, that it was the fire department really coming together as a collaborative unit. And I think, and I know that you've personally told me, the key players in it, that really stand out, the people who went above and beyond. I know you've acknowledged that from your management to the line staff to Karen in admin, it's just been phenomenal teamwork. So again, congratulations on this, and I'd like you to have an opportunity to, publicly let people know kind of who was instrumental.
Well, thank you. I guess, first of all, I'll start with thanking the community for supporting us and standing behind us through this process. It was not an easy task. It was not an easy ask. But for the community to stand behind us as a fire department and approve this, it means a lot, and it's going to be. We had a watch party on Tuesday night through the process, and I informed all of them there. I said, this is going to be a historical event for the Stevens Point Fire Department. This is changing the history. This is a generational change in our organization, and it would not have been possible without the whole department. And many members within the organization. And I hate just saying certain names because, inevitably you're going to miss somebody at some point, but the command staff standing behind me and supporting me as we went through things. And I see Tony out there. He was kind of my IT guy anytime I needed help or every time I had to do a open forum presentation. He always came along and made sure everything was up and running. Karen for putting a lot of the talking points that all of you and all the Common Council members got, getting that put together, and always being there to tweak the referendum presentations or anything else that we needed, to the assistant chiefs and the other division chiefs and fire marshal and battalion chiefs, getting that data to put into that, besides the studies that we did on the organization, making sure that we had the correct data and pulling things all the way back to the 80s, and making sure we were comparing apples to apples. And in the union, the union stood behind us as well through this process, and our president, Justin Thompson, I mean, he tirelessly worked side by side with me through the process, and constantly we were on the phone talking about things or making sure that things were running appropriately. We had help from the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, the International Association. We had people helping with on all different avenues. Their executive board and Jason Pettis stepping up to help with many things, Jake Butler and Ethan Shabilsky, and then all the men and women of the department that took time to assist with the mailers, the lit drops, the communication back and forth. It was a true team effort. So again, kind of like being awarded the Chief of the Year, I didn't do it. The membership did it. They just make me look good. So I'll be honest, they're the ones who are in the trenches doing the work day in and day out. They're the ones who are truly doing it, and that's where the recognition needs to be put, is with them. So again, thanks to the city and the citizens and the community, but definitely thanks to the members and the men and women of the department. They made it happen. Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the fire chief's report, EMS and EM report.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, sub 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, for discussion of the following: police chief and fire chief annual evaluations.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.